travel friends. It's 80. It is story time, my first story time, and it is wild. So come on in, come on in, come on in. So I'm currently in Thailand. I'm at this cute little cafe by myself. It's called Rosy Cheeks. My friend I met here in Fuji, this is his place. Anyway, while I was sitting here, I'm like, you know what, this is a good time to tell this crazy story. So, I live in Florida. I am planning to move to Thailand. Super excited. Anyway, I have a nail tech that lives in Florida, and she has been doing my nails for about 4, almost 5 years. I get my nails done every 2 weeks, so I see her all the time. I own a spa, and I do massages and all kind of stuff like that. And she uses my services as well. I also teach foot reflexology, so she's taken my class before. Her boss at the nail salon wants me to teach all of the nail techs how to do it so they can add other services. So we have a working relationship, good communication, and like I said, I see her every 2 weeks for the last several years. She does my daughter's nails when family and friends come in town. She does their nails, so I know her well. When I told her I wanted to move to Thailand, I told her I was considering Chiang Mai. And she said, well, you always go to Chiang Mai, try to find some other areas just to look around, just to see if you like something else before you just move. And I said, well, yeah, I could. And she was like, yeah, come to my city. It's called Padang Besar. And I said, I've never heard of that. And she was like, well, I have some properties that I'm selling. So, you can check them out. I want you to come stay with me for a week. I'll take care of you. You can stay at my house. I'll show you around, show you places. And, it'll just be nice to see you. And I said, okay. And so I said, yeah, we can plan that. That sounds good. So we've been talking about this for almost over a year. And everything has been booked since March. It's July now. So everything was fine. We made our schedules. Everything was okay. And I agreed, to come visit her. So I got to Chiang Mai, enjoyed a couple of days here. And then I got to the airport called Hat Yai. And it's a city down south of Chiang Mai. And that's the closest airport to her city, which is again called Padang Besar. So I never heard of either one of these places. And I said, well, I'm on my exploratory journey of where I want to live. I might as well check out the city where I land too. So when I got to the airport, I stayed at the hotel right next door and called a driver on this app that they use called Grab. And she came and picked me up and took me to the beach. And she was like, where else are you going today? I was like, well, I might go to see this other historical site and all this. And she said, oh, well, just hire me for the day. It'll probably be cheaper and, more reliable as far as getting back and forth to these sites. And I said, okay, how much is it? And she said 300, and 300 baht equals about $9 and some change US. So I'm like, okay, 300 an hour or $9 an hour. That's fine for a driver. So, we were probably together a total of about 6 hours that day. She was super nice. We kept talking, but we were using a translator because her English was about as good as my Thai. It's like, hey, hi, bye, thank you. Where's the bathroom? So I am learning though. But so everything was good. It was all great. Walking through the clothing market. Hey, my new friend. Her name is Sunita.
Yes, Sunita.
Sunita. Clothing market. So that evening she took me back to the hotel. The next day I just explored around the local area around the airport hotel. And the day after that, my friend came and picked me up as scheduled. So we hugged, high-fived, everything was good. Good to see you. Thanks for coming to my country, all of this. So my friend lives about another hour and 10 minutes south of that hotel. So we're in the car. She was like, do you want to get something to eat? And so I was like, yeah. So we stopped at this little market and I found, y'all, the fried chicken here is top tier. So I found the fried chicken lady and she had rice. And so I got that and we got back to her house. So this house setup is a duplex, but it's not like in America. So she has her side over here with 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a little living room area, and another little room that she uses for massages. In the back is her indoor kitchen. And over here is like a storage area. And if you continue to go through the kitchen, you end up in the neighbor's kitchen. and then you can go through their kitchen and get to the outdoor kitchen, which is usually where Thai people cook, because their foods are very aromatic and strong, and they don't like all those smells in the house, so they usually cook outside. Anyway, the people next door is her daughter, the daughter's husband, and their 2 children. So it's family. So the son-in-law, it was his birthday. So they had neighbors at the house. They had other family members at the house. Most of them couldn't speak English at all. The granddaughter was 17 years old, and excuse me, it was her very first time seeing a black person. So my friend, we're gonna call her Shelly, she's married to a white American, European American, and that was the only American that the granddaughter had ever seen. So they're asking a lot of questions, welcoming me in. It's a good evening. They asking me, do I want a drink? And I'm like, no, I'm okay. So it started getting late, they having fun, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna go to bed. So I go in the house, and the granddaughter was like, oh, can we talk? And I said, yeah, because she wanted to practice her English. She wanted to just talk to me and meet me. And I said, I'll stay up. Then the daughter's mom came in, the granddaughter's mom. So my friend's daughter came in, and she was like, oh, you want some cake? And I said, sure. So she cut me a piece of cake. I'm eating the cake, and we're talking. Now, before we got to the house, my friend told me my daughter doesn't talk much. If she says hi and just doesn't say anything else to you, don't take it personal, because that's just how she is. And she said it like that. And I was like, okay, no problem. But now I'm at the house, and I'm sitting here talking to the daughter and the granddaughter for like a half hour. And I'm like, okay. So my friend comes in. Sorry, y'all, I got allergies, not heebie-jeebies. But my friend comes in, and she sees the cake on the table. She's like, you want some more cake? And I was like, no, I'm okay. She proceeds to continue to cut the cake and put it on my plate. I'm like, okay, am I in the movie? Like, eat the cake, anime? Like, I understand you being hospitable, but I definitely said no. And so the daughter looks, and she's like, Mom, she said no. And my friend was like, something in Thai, I don't know what she said. And then they started fussing in Thai, not bad, but just fussing, like she was irritated. And so my friend got up and walked out. And I said, okay, well, I ate the cake. It wasn't a whole lot. I ate it. And then I said goodnight to them, and I went to bed. And the next day, I woke up. Now, my room was great. I had a king-size bed, my own bathroom, all of that. So the next day I woke up, it was probably like 9, and my friend wasn't at the house. And I said, okay. I checked my text. She didn't leave a message or anything. I was like, okay, that's super strange, but it's okay. So I call her, she doesn't answer. I text her, she doesn't answer. And around like 11:30, I'm like, okay, I'm hungry. So let me go on Google and see if there are any restaurants nearby or, anything like that. So I go on Google, I find a restaurant. Well, I thought I did. So I walk to the restaurant, and it's under construction. But I see these guys with like these 20-foot long sticks, and they're messing with stuff up in the tree, and I realized they're getting fruit down. So I'm standing there watching them. I took a picture, and then they turn around and they see me, and they like, hi. And I'm like, hi. And the man said, oh, you try to eat? And I said, yeah. He said, oh no, not time. And I said, okay. He said, you gotta go down the street to the market. And I said, okay. So I started walking. He said, hey. And I turned around, and they gave me a piece of fruit. And I was like, okay, that was super sweet. So, excuse me, I started walking, and about 30 seconds later, the guy was like, pulled up on a motorcycle, was like, doo-doo. He's like, come. So that's not abnormal in Thailand. If somebody knows you're trying to get somewhere and they see you walking, they will help you get there. So again, this is my 3rd time here. It's not a new experience. So he takes me down to the market and lets me off and shows me some good restaurants. I tell him thank you, and I'm there for maybe 20-30 minutes, and then my friend finally calls, and I was like, hey, where are you? She's like, oh, I'm at the beauty shop. I'm getting my hair done, and I'm getting my nails done. I was like, I thought we were getting our nails done together. And she was like, oh, well, you were still asleep when I left. And I was like, okay, but you could have called, left a note or something. She said, oh, I didn't think of that. And I said, okay, I'll let that slide. But I still thought it was weird. I'm like, okay, it's been like 4 hours. And she's like, well, I was under the hair dryer. Ma'am, I do hair. You wasn't under the dryer for 4 hours, but let's go. So I said, well, can you come pick me up from the restaurant? She's like, oh, no, I'm still at the beauty shop. I said, okay, well, I guess I'll just meet you at the house. She said, okay. So I walked back to the house, And I get to the house, and I'm there for, I don't know how long. I wasn't even paying attention. And she finally was like, okay, I'm on my way, but I'm not coming in. Just, let me just take you somewhere. And I said, okay. So I get in the car, and we drive for maybe 45 minutes from her house up this beautiful mountain. Like, the scenery was amazing. And we get to this temple that looks like something off of Harry Potter. Because when she said she wanted to take me to a temple, I'm like, I'm not templed out, but it's just like, But when we got there, I was like, oh, this is unique. This is beautiful. Thank you. And then, like, the mountain in the back, it looks so familiar. Like, I don't know if they use it as a screensaver or if it's been on a movie or what, but it was just absolutely beautiful. We leave from there. We going to the street market, and I said, oh, I'm gonna get this chicken. And she said, oh, okay, let me park the car and I'll help you order it. I said, oh, I don't need help ordering. She's like, well, you don't speak Thai and they don't speak English, so how you gonna tell them what you want? I said, I got it. And she's like, well, I'm just gonna park. And so I said, I want this chicken lady right here. And she was like, oh, I'm just gonna park. I said, Shelly, stop the car. Like, this is what I want and I'm okay. She's like, well, I said, stop the car, please. And she stopped, and I got out. I ordered my food. And when I finished ordering my food, I was walking towards the street where I saw her turn, and she was walking up the street. And I had my food, and she's like, how did you get the food? I said, I told you it was okay. I just pointed to what I wanted, did like this, asked her how much. She told me. I gave her the money. She's like, oh, I don't understand how you communicated that. I was like, well, I have my food. And she's like, okay, let's walk around and look for food. I was like, oh, for you? And she was like, no, I want to show you some other stuff. And so I'm like, this lady's super controlling. And it's not going to work because I'm not a person that likes being controlled. Definitely by no woman. So we walking around, and I'm like, okay, maybe this is part of her showing me around. So let me oblige. So we're walking around, and we finally get back in the car. And I think it was either my mom or my sister or somebody, and I was like, she's super controlling, but if it gets to the point where it's really annoying me, I'll just leave. It's not that big a deal, because I had my hotel in Chiang Mai for the entire time. Like, I didn't check out and come to her and then have to check back in. I had that. So I'm like, if anything, I'll change this flight and go back to where I want to be. And so everything's fine. That night, she tells me, oh, I have some doctor's appointments. And I also need to check on one of my other properties and take my sister's name off of it. And I just have a lot of running around to do tomorrow. And I was like, it's okay. I can go with you, or you can tell me some stuff to do and I'll go. And she was like, well, I'm gonna leave at like 6 o'clock in the morning. I said, that's okay. So I'm not an early riser unless I'm catching the flight. But I get up, and she wasn't ready yet, but we left the house at like 6:30, 6:45. And I said, where we going? She said, it's a city called Satun. And I said, where is that? And so she shows me, like, her house is so close to Malaysia border, like you could walk to the actual place where you got to check your papers and stuff. And Satun is like almost 2 hours from her house. And I'm like, wow, I am really like all over Thailand. So I'm kind of excited about being able to see another city, even though it's for her doctor's appointment or paperwork or whatever. I didn't mind. So we get in the car, we're driving, and we're like halfway there, and we stop at a gas station. So at this time, we've been in the car for an hour talking. Everything's okay. So we get to the gas station, and she parks. Now, they all have gas station attendants, so nobody has to get out to pump. So we get to the gas station, and she says, just like this, she's like, 80? I was like, yeah. She's like, you want to fill up the tank? And I was like, no. And she said, okay. And she got out the car, closed the door, and then I hear her like fussing. And I look out the window like, is she upset? So she gets back in the car, and I'm like, I almost said her real name. I was like, Shelly, are you upset for real? Like, do you really need money on the gas? And she's like, why wouldn't you pay? I said, well, let me start here. At the end of the week, I was planning on giving you like $100 just to say thank you for hosting me for a week. But why would I pay for gas now, and we're going to something for you? Like, you're not showing me around or doing anything for me, so why would I pay for the gas right now? And she was like, you think you're just gonna stay at my house for free? I said, kinda. Like, that's what hosting means, and that's what you said and what we planned for the last several months. And she was like, I'm not gonna go broke taking care of you, and in addition to the gas, I need some money for the electric bill. I said, what? She's like, you using the extra AC, you using the hot water for the shower, you staying at my house, you think you're gonna stay at my house and I'm just gonna go broke taking care of you? I said, how would you go broke taking care of me? Like, and why, if you were broke, why would you offer me to stay at your house? And she was like, you know better. You travel all the time. You know you're supposed to pay people. You know you're supposed to help. You know you're supposed to share. I'm like, no. Now, I own Airbnbs. So yeah, if it's a random stranger that's staying on my properties, yeah, you're going to pay the fee. But any of my family or friends that comes from out of town, especially out of the country, and I ask you to come stay at my house, and I say, let me take care of you for a week, let me show you around, let me do this, let me do that, there's no charge. Now, everybody is different, but I'm telling you how I operate. So I say that to her. I say, well, maybe it's just a culture difference, but I can't even say culture. I'm just telling you what I do. So no, I didn't expect to have to pay my friend to stay at her house when she asked me to stay at her house. And she was like, you're lying. I think you know. I think you know. And I said, why would I lie about something like that? Like, literally, I did not know. But if you need something, it's cool. So I reach in my bag and I get like an equivalent of like $50 US. It only took $36 US to fill up this truck. We're in a quad cab Toyota pickup truck. And I'm like, okay, $50, that's enough to fill up the tank and put some money on her light bill. So I give it to her and she just looks and rolls her eyes. I'm like, okay. She was like, I need to pick up my cousin because she needs to help me with the paperwork and all of this stuff like that. I said, okay. So the whole rest of the hour to the cousin's house, she's fussing. You know this, and I can't believe you thought I was going to pay for you. And that's what you think. That's what you think. So I'm trying to understand her. Also trying to speak slow, because even though she's like lives in America, she's still translating as I'm speaking. So I'm like, okay, she's frustrated. She's angry. This is a big misunderstanding. I don't mind paying. I gave her money. Like, why is she still like rawr, you know? And so I'm trying to stay calm, because I'm from St. Louis, and people who know me knew me. So I'm trying to stay calm. So I'm like, I don't want no issues. But she's not, like, she's relentless with this rawr. And so we get to the cousin's house. We get out the car. She doesn't even tell me we're at the cousin's house, because it's a mechanic shop and they live in the back of it. A lot of people in Thailand live immediately behind their businesses. Sometimes you can even see their beds from the business. Like, it's a variety of things here, mansions, everything. But so we get there. She doesn't even introduce me. So she's talking to her cousin, fussing. Her cousin was looking at me like, oh, okay. Okay. And I said, hello, Swadika. You know, my name is Adi. And I was like, True Araka, which means, what's your name? And she told me her name. I can't remember. And then the husband came out and he saw that they were fussing and could see that I was kind of uncomfortable. He's like, you want some tea? And I said, yeah. He's like, oh, have a seat. I said, well, thank you. Like, because my friend is acting crazy. So we drink the tea. And then she says, okay, we need to go to these government offices. I need to finish my paperwork. I said, okay, no problem. I'll ride with you. So we get to the truck and she tells her cousin to get in the front. And I was like, no, I'll be sitting where I was sitting. And I got in the front seat and the cousin got in the back, like sitting behind her. So she looks at me. She says something to the cousin in Thai. You know, you can read body language. I don't have to understand what you're saying verbatim to understand that you're talking crap. So we're driving and the cousin says, so what you don't want to give money? I said, the money's right there in the cup holder. And Shelly says, I don't want the money. So then the cousin is like, whoa. Now the cousin is speaking in English. She said, you don't want money? She give you money, you don't want money? And I said, right. She's like, so what you want? I said, exactly. And when you find out, let me know so she can calm down. And so they're talking in Thai and all of this stuff like that. And the cousin's like, you know, she kind of gets quiet. And Shelly's still fussing, basically talking to herself at this point. We go to like 4 or 5 different offices and she is still going. We are like 2 hours into this driving around for this paperwork. She's trying to take her sister's name off of the property so she can sell the property because her and her sister got into it. I'm like, okay, I'm seeing a pattern. You into it with everybody in your family. Like, okay. So we get to one of the government offices and she's still going. So at this time, I need a break. So I text, it's a group called Black in Chiang Mai, and we're all on WhatsApp. So I'm sitting there and I text them like, hey, let me just tell y'all what's going on with me. I'm at my friend's, she's asking for gas money, electric bills. I don't know if this is culture. I don't know if this is her, but just FYI, if somebody invites you to your house, to their house, communicate with them what the terms are. So that's all I wanted to tell my group was what was happening in that moment and to just look out. So, I'm texting back and forth with them. Some of them have different opinions on what you should do, what you shouldn't do. They have questions about the whole scenario. But mind you, I'm just like texting while this is actively happening. So we get to the government office and I tell her, I'm just going to sit in the car. And she was like, no, you're not. I said, okay. So I got out. We finished up the stuff. And then she tells me, I'm going to stay here overnight because I don't drive well when I'm tired. And I said, okay, now at this time it's maybe 2:00 in the evening. So I said, it's been a long day. We did get up early. She stayed up late the day before. Like, I get it. So we dropped the cousin back off at her house. And then she tells me, you need to stay at a hotel. I said, nope. I'm not staying at a hotel. And she was like, I just feel like what was going on and all of this and all of. And so I'm kind of getting frustrated, kind of wanting to make sure my family knows my location because the energy is shifting bad. So I called my mom on video chat and my mom's like, hey. And I'm like, hey. And she was like, what's going on? I was like, well, there's a disagreement, but I want you, to share your opinion. And so my friend snatches my phone and I'm like, my mom's on the phone. Okay, so she's like, I just want to know that. I said, no. The first thing you do is you introduce yourself when you're talking to my mama. Like, no. So she's like, my mom's like, hi, are you Shelly? And she said, yeah. And so my mom's like, what's going on? So she's, telling her what she thinks. So my mom, she's a true Libra. She always trying to find a balance in everything. So first she tries to say the agreeable part. She said, well, if you're driving around, it is kind of customary to help put in on gas. But as far as somebody staying at your house, and especially if you invited them and you're hosting, no, they don't owe you any utility bills. And she's like, and no, 80 wouldn't naturally just pay your utility bills, unless it was a problem or something. You could tell her, but, she'll give you money if that's what you need. I said, Mom already gave her money. So my mom was like, what's the problem? I'm like, I don't know. So she gives me my phone back. And so I'm talking to my mom. And this heifer says, oh, she just stupid. She taught you to be stupid. And you being stupid too. I said, Sherry, shut up. Shut the hell up. And my mom she didn't hear what she said. And I said, shut up. And my mom was like, you don't tell a grown person to shut up and you in her car and all of this. I said, Mama, let me get off the phone. Because my mama didn't even realize like her being on the phone was putting me in defense mode for her. And she couldn't hear what the friend is saying. So I was like, yeah, let me get off the phone because this is just elevating my energy, not in a good way. So we get off the phone. We're driving on like the equivalent of a highway, and it's just my friend and I. She had dropped the cousin off, and she tells me, you need to stay at a hotel. I said, I'm not staying anywhere that you're not staying. Where are you going? She's like, I'm going to my family's house and I don't want you there. And I said, I'm not staying in the middle of nowhere by myself. And the way you're acting, I don't trust you. If you want to get rid of me, you can take me back to your house. And she's like, you want to go back to my house? You can go back to my house. You find a ride and you get your stuff out of my house and you can go. I said, oh, that's the plan. I said, you can pay for a taxi for me to get back, or you can take me home, or we're going to be at a hotel and I'm going to ride back with you in the morning. And she says, you're not staying with me. And I said, okay. So we're just riding. We're on the highway. She pulls over and she says, you know what? Get out of my car. Okay. I look around. I said, she look around like, who's she looking at? I said, oh, that's what I'm trying to figure out who you talking to. And she was like, I'm talking to you. I'm sick of you. You don't want to pay for nothing. I said, you have the money. Do you need more? I'm not understanding how to fix this. I said, okay, would you please tell me how to fix this? What do you need from me right now? Because I got nothing. She sits there. She can't think of nothing. She's like, get out of my car. I said, okay. Now, for my church people who watch this, cover your ears because I'm about to say it exactly how I said it. I said, you got me fucked up real bad. I'm not getting out of this car. She said, you don't talk like that. I know you all these years and you never said a cuss word. You never said nothing. You don't talk to me. And then she gets so angry, she starts speaking in Thai. She don't even realize she's speaking in Thai. And I said, okay, this lady is spazzing out. I said, no, I don't talk like that. But I've also never been tried, like nobody's ever tried to drop me off in the middle of the highway in the middle of nowhere, Thailand. So different situation calls for different responses. I'm gonna tell you what, you can take me back to your house. We can get a hotel and go back to your house in the morning. Either way, I'm leaving your house. But those are your only two options because I'm not getting out of this car. She says, well, fine. So we pull up to this hotel, and I'm saying hotel loosely. It's a little house with a covered porch and 4 little huts. And she's talking to the lady, and the lady's kind of confused. And then my friend's just like, da, 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 da. And so the lady's like, and slides her the hotel room key. So then she goes to the hotel room and she's showing her around, and she's like, oh, the lady's like, Ty? I said, no. She's like, oh, one bed. And I said, I don't care if it was a couch. I'm not leaving her. And so the lady's like, what's she saying? So then my friend's saying something, she fussing, and she walks in the room. The lady like comes out the room, and I'm about to step into the room, and my friend slams the door in my face. And I said, okay. So I go back to the little lobby area, the covered porch, and I'm sitting there, and I said, okay, this is bad. Now, I'm on these apps. I'm on Grab trying to find cars. It doesn't work. It's another app called Maxim. I download that. No cars. I download the other one called Bolt. No cars. And I said, okay, I'm really in the middle of nowhere. There are no drivers. So the lady's like, you want room? You want sleep? And I said, no. My spirit was telling me just sit there for a minute. So I'm sitting there for like 10 minutes, and I see a car pull up. Like, they don't come into the driveway of the hotel. They stopped on the main street. And I'm like, okay, got to be somebody for the people that work at the hotel because there's nothing else over here. So I see my friend come out of the room, but I'm sitting like behind where she's coming out the room, so she doesn't see me. And I see her walking towards the car, and I'm like, oh, shoot. So I get up, I put my shoes on, because you take your shoes off everywhere. So I put my shoes on. I'm walking behind her. She doesn't see me. And she slides the hotel lady the key. I'm like, this heifer was just playing. She didn't pay for the room. She just wanted me to think she got the room so I would get the room. So I'm walking behind her to the car. She's walking to the car. Then the person in the car, doo-doo, and points. Shelly turns around and she says, and runs to the car, gets in the car and speeds off. I was like, oh my God, this lady just left me in the middle of nowhere, Thailand. So I go back to the little cover area and I sit down. The lady said, you sleep? Like, you want a room now? Because your homegirl's gone. And I'm like, like, this is crazy. So I feel like I want to panic, but at the same time, I didn't. Like, I work really well under pressure. So I'm like, okay, what to do. And I'm still on the apps trying to find a car. Like, everything is grayed out. Nothing's available. So the hotel lady's like, you eat? And I said, yeah, I want to eat. And I said, I'll move, which means I don't eat pork. And she said, oh, you chick. I said, yes, I eat chicken. And she said, okay, I'll order it. And I said, okay. So she orders it, and the Grab driver comes and brings the food. So I'm like, okay, it is Grab out here. So I go to the driver and I say, wait. He's like, yeah. And so I put in the translator, like, can you take me home? And he was like, oh, no. And I asked why. He said, oh, I work at the restaurant. I'm just bringing you the food from my restaurant. Like, I don't drive around. Like, this motorcycle wouldn't even go, 10 minutes down the street. Is not for that. And I said, well, are there other Grab drivers? He was like, it's one other Grab driver for his, like, local fruit market where he brings food to people, but no drivers. Like, everybody around here either walks or has a scooter or, a car to go local. And I'm like, I'm stuck. And I tell him thank you. I pay for my food. I sit down and I eat. And then the hotel lady, she cut up some dragon fruit and gave it to me, and then she cut up a mango and gave it to me. I'm like, thank you. And then I remembered I had the little fruit from the guys from the tree, and just, just as a thing, I handed it to her. She said, oh, I opened for you. I said, no, it's for you. And she was like, oh, kapun ka, which means thank you. And so I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, God, Jesus, Buddha, everybody, whoever, whatever is over here, I need some help. And so I was like, come on, God, give me something. And then I'm like, the driver that I had when I first landed. So I text her name is Sunita. I text her, I was like, Sunita, this is 80. Are you available? She said, oh, you need a ride? I said, yeah. She said, send me the address. So I go on Google Maps, I send her my location. She said, oh, AD, wrong address. And I said, no, it's correct. She said, no, it's 2 hours and 10 minutes from where we were. I said, that's where I am. She said, what's wrong? How did you get there? I said, my friend. She's like, your friend can't bring you back? I said, no, she's sick. There's something wrong. She's sick. And she was like, oh, she's really sick. I said, yeah, real sick. And she said, well, how much do you pay me? And I said, however much you want. And so she's translating this too. And she's like, no, how much you paid me to pick you up? And I translate back, however much money you tell me it costs is how much I will pay you. She says, okay, let me ask my husband. So I'm like, come on, husband, pull through. So she says, okay, I'm on my way. So a little weight was lifted, but it took her about 2 hours to get there. And she pulled into the driveway. I'm like, thank you, God. So I try to give the hotel people like 200 baht just for thank you. Let me sit here. Y'all gave me fruit, very hospitable. She said, no, friends don't pay. And I'm like, tell that to this half of it just sped off and left me. And so, but I was like, okay. So I get in the car. She said, hug. So she gave me a hug and she said, you're okay. And I'm like, okay. So I get in the car and she's making a U-turn to come out of the parking lot, and the hotel lady like knocks on the door. And she said, yeah. So I'm like, now what could she want? I tried to give her money. She didn't want it. What could she want with her? And so they're speaking in Thai, and I told you my driver doesn't know much English, so she's trying to translate to me what the lady is saying to her, and all she can say is, your friend said call. I said, I don't have a friend, because at this point I'm done with the relationship. So I said, call her for what? I'm not understanding. So she's translating again, and the hotel lady tells her friend said call her if she leaves. You got these people watching me? You telling them to tell you if I leave the hotel? What kind of scary movie? I said, I like main character energy, but this ain't the movie I want to be in. I was like, okay, this lady's a psychopath, and I don't know what's about to happen. So the hotel lady is speaking in Thai, and the driver is like, okay. And the lady said, okay. So she comes to the back door to open my door, and I said, no. So I slammed my door closed. And the lady is like, talking to my driver, like, what you gonna do? So my driver, she looks at me and she looks at the hotel lady and she's like, she said something to her, and the hotel lady's like, okay. So we pull off and I'm like, what was that all about? And she's like, your friend told her you're dangerous and that I should not pick you up and I shouldn't take you anywhere because you're dangerous. And she's like, but AD, that's not true. I was with you all day. You're very nice, very sweet, very kind. And I said, so what'd you say? She said, I just told her I was going to take you to the store and bring you back. And I said, so what are we about to do? She was like, I'm about to take you wherever you need to go. Like, you paying me. I don't have anything to do with these people. And I'm like, oh my God. So we're driving off. And mind you, it's a 2-hour ride. So I'm just sitting here like, what is actually happening? I said, I'm like in shock. I'm thankful that she picked me up. But I'm like, this is wild. So we're driving and she said, well, she said you can't get in the house. And I said, I can get in the house. Like, she already told me they don't even lock the door. She had already told me come get my stuff and all of that. So that's what I'm on. The last time I talked to you, you told me get my stuff out your house and go. So that's what I'm going to do. So we get to the house. Now they have an American bully. Well, I don't know if it's an American. It's a bully. It looked like a pit bull, but it's a little, look like they bench press or something. So I open the gate. It's not locked. And the dog is sitting there looking. And I'm like, ooh, be easy. So I go to the house, slide the screen door open. That's how you get in the house, a regular screen door. Nothing's locked. So I get my stuff And I'm rushing. I'm like, Lord, let me get out of this crazy lady's house. I don't know if her kid's here, who not here. I don't even care. At this point, I just need to get out of her space and somewhere safe. So I get my stuff and I come back out the door and the dog stands up and I'm like, ooh wee. And I remember the granddaughter taught him how to say shake. I mean, how to shake. And she says it in English. So I'm like, shake. And the dog's like, ooh. So he holds up his little paw and I'm like, I'm not touching you. I just ran out the gate, slid the gate closed. And I'm like, oh my God. And I'm like, shoot, I left all my stuff that was in the bathroom, my soap, my towels. I was like, I don't even care. Let me get it out in a way. Like none of that stuff matters. The only reason I went back to get my suitcase because I had my global entry card, you know, with all my information. I'm like, I'm not leaving nothing at this woman's house with my personal information on it. So we get in the car and the driver was like, oh, she lied. I said, yes, we knew that. And she said, yeah, but I mean, it wasn't locked. And I said, I know. She was like, does she even have a dog? I said, yeah, she got a dog. And she was like, okay, where to go now? I was like, I don't know. I got to pee. So she was like, okay, I have to get gas. So they come to your car with something that looks like a 2-liter soda bottle and a funnel. And they pour the gas into the car. Like, that's how small this little city is. So we're sitting there and they pour in the gas in the tank. And I'm like shaking at this point. I got to pee so bad. I'm like, my nerves are shot. I said I would be the worst criminal ever because I can't do nothing crazy. So I'm like, nerve shot, gotta pee. And I'm like, can you ask them, is it a bathroom? Now, this is one of these, like, very small businesses, and they might live there, they might not, but I see what it is. She says, for her? And I said, now, what does that mean? Because she said it in English, for her. And she said, yeah. So she started speaking in Thai. She said, oh. So the driver said, oh, she said, there's no door. I said, at this point, I don't care if it's a bucket outside. I gotta go. So she said, okay. So, okay. So she comes in. It's a little, like, convenience store. I know they're not going to have no tissue. So I'm like, tissue. I pay, you know, when I come out the toilet. She said, okay. So I go in the bathroom. It's one of them, like, I call them squatty potties. It's just like the little ceramic thing in the floor, like a Thai toilet, Chinese toilet. And I'm like, oh, shoot. I got on this little one-piece outfit. I was like, I'm going to pee all over myself trying to pee with my clothes. So I take my whole little outfit off. And I'm holding it. And I'm squatting down over this thing, peeing. And I feel something on my foot. And I'm like, I look down, it's a cockroach the size of this finger. And I'm like, ah. So I'm still trying to pee. I'm holding my clothes. I'm like, oh my God. So then I look to the left. It is 10 cockroaches just chilling, standing on the wall. I'm like, of course, at this moment I have to pee like a freaking racehorse. I'm like, Lord, get me out of here. I finished using the bathroom. You have to flush the toilet by dipping the bucket out and just pouring it down a little hole, and then it like gravity pulls or something. I don't know. So I flushed the toilet, and like I put my clothes back on, and I'm like, I get outside and I'm like, like, you know, shaking my hair, shaking my clothes, doing everything, trying to make sure I don't have no cockroaches on me. So they start laughing, and I'm like, whew. So I get in the car, and the driver is like, okay, where are you going? And I said, just take me to the airport. And I'm like, oh, shoot, I need to change my ticket because it was scheduled for the 30th. And this is like, you know, 5 days before I'm supposed to leave because I was there, supposed to be there for a week. So I go in and I said, okay, I didn't want to change my airline ticket till I knew when I could get to the airport. So I go online. I use the driver's Wi-Fi to change my ticket. And it was for 11 o'clock in the morning. At this time, it's like 10 o'clock at night. And she said, where you gonna go? And I said, just take me to the airport. She's like, what time is your flight? I said, at 11. She said, like, in an hour? I said, no, like 12, 13, 14 hours, you know. And she was like, oh, that's a long time. I said, I just want to be somewhere safe. And she's like, okay. So as we're driving, I'm like, girl, you in Thailand. What do these hotels cost? $30, $50? Like, get somewhere comfortable. So I said, you know what? Let me see. So I go online. I try to book the same hotel that I was at before, and he said he had 2 rooms left, king room and the twin room. So I pushed the king room, and as soon as I pushed it, it said not available. I'm like, oh Lord. And they said 1 room left, and I said, I pushed it, and the twin room got booked. And I said, okay. I said, can you just take me to the Signature Hotel? And she said, oh, I know where I picked you up from. And I said, yes. And she said, okay. And I said, thank you. So we got there, and I said, how much? And she was like, $4,500, which is like equivalent to 120 US dollars. So I gave her the equivalent of 150. And she was like, no, too much. And she was like, you don't know how much I needed this. I'm like, you don't know how much I needed you. So now we both standing there crying. So hugging and crying, hugging and crying. And I'm just like, thank you so much. Like, you don't even understand. And she was like, no, I needed this. You don't understand. And so we were just showing gratitude for each other. And then I walk towards the hotel and I hear like a little kid like, hey, hey, hey. And I don't realize they're talking to me. And then she says, hello. So I turn around, there's a little Chinese girl. She's like 4. And she's like, hi. I said, hi. And then she said, Swadika. I said, Swadika. And she came up to me and she grabbed my arm. And she said, oh, you water. You water. I said, oh, I'm okay. I'm okay. Because I was crying. And she was like, and she just gave me a hug. And, of course, that made me cry more because I was, like, super emotional at this moment. I'm trying not to go there now. But she's like, you water? I said, I'm okay. I said, thank you. And then I'm like, where are your parents? so I look up, I'm like, I'm in the parking lot, like outside this hotel. Where's this kid's parents? And so they walk from around the other side of the van and they see her talking to me. They don't even say anything. So we go into the hotel. They're checking in. I'm checking in. And then the girl's like playing peekaboo and all kind of stuff. And, I'm playing back with her. And then I get to my room and the bellsman takes me up to my room, shows me around, and I called my parents. I let them know that I was okay. I called my friend. I called my sister. Just talked to some of my friends, and then I took a shower. And when I got into bed, it was like almost 2:00, and then it all just hit me like this really just happened. And y'all, I cried for like 10 minutes straight. Honestly, I don't know how long it was, but it was a release cry that I've never cried before because I can't even start the what ifs. So many things could have happened, but I'm so thankful for my personality. I'm thankful for following my spirit to get that lady's phone number. And it was just really, really crazy. And do y'all know the next morning, this heifer texted me, I want you to know that you can't get in my house. You can't get your stuff. I guess she hadn't been back home yet. So she's thinking I'm still at the hotel. She said, you happy now? You know Thai culture now? Like, if I can put the audio recording, I'm going to put it up here so y'all can hear it. But if not, this is how she said it. And then she's like, you're not going to be able to get your shirt, meaning my stuff, for a while. I'm like, what?
Today I am not home. I have something to do more. And my house not have people live in house, have the dog. You cannot go to pick your shirt today. You can go to pick your shirt tomorrow. I am home. I hope you understand Thai culture. You very happy now? I hope you very happy now.
So I'm like, this lady think I'm still at the hotel. They must not have called her back again and told her I didn't stay. And so she's still thinking I'm at the hotel. Like the one far, far away. And I was like, this lady is crazy. So she messages me again. Oh, also the door is locked and the dog is out and off the leash. So you can't even get in there if you do go. I said, what do you speak of? I have nothing at your house. And I can see that she read the message, but she didn't say anything. Then later that day, like I was already back in Chiang Mai on my flight and everything. And she texts me back, how did you get your stuff? Did you go into my house? Did somebody bring your stuff out? Was somebody at the house when you got there? How did you get your stuff? I didn't respond at all because at this point I'm done. And then she says, I'm talking. And I said, what you're doing is harassing me. And I'm not happy about it. I said, you left me stranded. I trusted you. You were my friend. And you left me stranded. You left me in a place where I don't speak the language. I don't know anybody. And I can't get transportation. Like, that's like kidnapping and abandonment. Do you understand what you just did? And she didn't respond back to that. She's just like, did you come to my house because of stuff missing out of my bedroom? Ma'am, what we not about to do is act like I took anything out of your house that didn't belong to me. Matter of fact, I left some of my stuff. I was like about to get angry, and then I was like, no, she gets no more energy. That's it. And like after I post this story and talk about it, I'm literally done with her until I get back to the States, and she gonna lose her job. This is not one of them situations where it's just like, oh, you're safe, let it go. No, ma'am. Anything that I can do legally, it's gonna be done. And the way stuff is set up in the United States right now, she better hope all her paperwork is right. Every T crossed and every I dotted. Because if not, your little town you like to leave people in is where you gonna be. Y'all, this is the craziest thing that had ever happened to me. And my life is wild. I have to tell y'all some more stories, but that's what happened. I did talk to the driver. I talked to some other people who are Thai, and they were like, yeah, that's not Thai culture at all. Like, I don't know if she like try to set you up or if her family encouraged her to do something, but that's not Thai culture at all. Like, if you have anybody in your house, you're hosting them. You know, that's not what you do, and it's not normal. And then the driver was like, oh, you did say she was sick. Maybe mentally she's sick. I said, yeah, maybe some of them doctor's appointment wasn't. Maybe it was about medication, because baby girl is crazy, like crazy. But I thank God that I'm okay. That's all I can say is overall, I just thank God that I'm okay. And I have this crazy story to entertain you guys with. And I thank everybody who always prays for me when I travel. And because I know just being able to keep my cool and figure stuff out in that moment was not an easy thing to do. Like, so again, hope you enjoyed the story. Talk to you later.